Hey guys, Sweeney here with the Startup Jungle podcast. Today we have joining us Los,
What's
and
up?
we
What's
also
up?
have Ryan Holiday. Now, Ryan Holiday is the author of two best-selling books: the book "Trust Me, I'm Lying: Confessions of a Media Manipulator," and the recent, as he describes it, single "Growth Hacker Marketing: A Primer on the Future of PR, Marketing, and Advertising." Now, I can't help but wonder a little bit with a media manipulator, what does it actually take for someone to be a best-selling author?
Is that a question or is that just an
It,
insinuation?
it's a little bit of both.
So my first book hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, the business list at its debut, and then Growth Hacker Marketing has been a #1 Amazon bestseller in like 10 categories basically since its release. That book will be coming out as a paperback as well in September, and then it'll, depending on sales, it could hit the traditional bestseller list as well.
That's interesting that it came out first as an ebook, and I have almost, about a year delay on the physical?
Yeah, that's very much how publishing works. The lead time on a traditional print book is about 14 to 18 months. So instead of doing that, I wrote it as a Kindle single first. We published it. It took about a month and a half to write, about two months to publish. It's done really well. Based on we talk about product market fit in the book a lot. The idea of testing something small, seeing how audiences receive it, getting their feedback, seeing room for improvement, and then launching iteratively from there. So we did it small as a cheap ebook. It sold a lot of copies. It got a lot of reviews, got a lot of feedback. Then I doubled the length, added a bunch of extra stuff, extra case studies, extra things, fixed errors, added things that I thought were missing, and then that will come out a year from its release as a traditional paperback that will be available in Barnes & Noble and independent bookstores and stuff like that.
I'm interested in as far as the promotion for when you launch the physical book, because you've already hit a lot of these channels, and it's like, hey, he's coming out with that again. How are you going to kind of...
Well, look, at the end of the day, books sell by word of mouth. If you look at the last 10 books that you bought not because you saw them on a podcast, but because someone that you know said that it was good and it was worth your time. And so that book already had, I'm not doing really any promotion for that book anymore. It came out 3 or 4 months ago, but it sells the same number of copies every week because it's commonly recommended by startups. People tweet about it. It just has sort of passive, regular word of mouth that sells the book. So the idea is the paperback is designed to take advantage of that and to further that. So I probably won't actually do much marketing for it because I don't need to, which is sort of the growth hacker approach anyway. It's, can you make something that people genuinely want and need and talk about, and can you build those features into the product so then as you expand and grow, most of the marketing is done for you.
It sounds like we almost need a blog post on the flip side case study of Growth Hacker Marketing, the book, practicing what I preach.
Yeah, I'll probably write something like that. That's a good idea.
Did you add in a case study on the updated version of essentially how you growth hacked the book?
I did actually. Yeah, that's sort of the last case study in the book is how I did this book compares to how most traditional books are done and how they're marketed, and the sort of the lessons that come from that. Like, I wasn't going to write a book about growth hacking and then not apply the principles of the book to the book. Just like when I wrote my first book, which is about media manipulation, I wasn't just going to put it out there and then magically hope it was successful. I'm going to do the tactics in the book because I believe in them.
Yeah.
From your, I guess we'll call it the ebook launch, just to keep them separate. From your ebook launch, what did you notice, were one of maybe your 1 to 2 best kind of growth hacks that you did for it?
Let's see. So one of the big ones was I have a list of bonuses in the back that if you like the book and you want to learn more about growth hacking, you send an email to this address and it kicks you back like a bunch of PDFs and documents of like extra materials that people might want. I think I'm at like 2,000 or 3,000 email addresses now from readers who have read all the book and then wanted to know more. So when I launched the paperback, I have a list of people that I can contact and say, hey, you really like this book clearly, or you wouldn't have signed up for this email list. Here's an expanded version, and here's a deal on it, or whatever. So that was one of the things that went really well. The pricing was another thing. Like, look, I probably could have sold that book for more money, but at $3, people are going to take a chance on it, and I would much rather people read the book and like it and feel like they got a good deal than have people read it, pay more money, and then regret having spent it.
And is there a reason why you didn't go free at all? Or
well, with a traditional publisher, you actually can't do that. They have sort of certain guidelines with the retailers, and of course, like if you're a traditional publisher, you're not in the business of giving books out for free. But my feeling is that the value that you sell something to has a lot to do with the value that people assume that it has. And so if you give something away for free, a lot of people's initial reaction is that this thing is not worth anything. So I tried to pick the lowest possible price that still said, like, look, you're going to get real value out of this product. Like, do I really want the people who don't care enough about what they like? You're launching a startup and you can't invest $3 in figuring out how to market it. Like, that's not really my target audience.
Yeah, you're not even breaking a 5 at that point. It's
right.
Really, it's really low. Would you almost say then for other people that do free giveaways and free blog giveaways, things of that nature, that it is better to hit some sort of price point?
Look, I think it depends. If you're a first-time author and you have no platform to speak of and no one's heard of you or your work, free is a helpful tool to create discovery. Because that's the thing. It's not just that books are competing on price with each other. Books are competing against not reading. Like, everyone would rather not have to read a book, right? Because you can watch podcasts, you can watch TED Talks, you can read blog posts, you can watch TV, you can basically do anything else but read a book. So if you are asking someone to read something from you and they've never heard of you, and you're asking them to pay $10 up front for the privilege, that's not a super attractive bargain. So what I did, and this is what I recommend authors do, is charge a fair but attractive price for your product, and then give as much of it away for free through other channels to attract people to the product. So I probably wrote 30 articles about growth hacker marketing that I published all over the internet on big sites, on small sites, on whatever. And the thinking was, if someone likes an article from me, and like let's say the book was 13,000 words and the articles were each 800 to 1,000 words, I'm giving away between 5 and 10% of the book in each post. So if someone reads 5% of the book for free and likes it, they're not going to have a problem spending $2.99 to read the whole thing.
How important do you think the content marketing strategy was and is for other people that are authors and stuff like that too?
It was probably the single best thing that I did for the book. So I'm pretty big on content marketing for books, not for everything else. Like, I think I see a lot of startups doing a lot of content marketing, and I'm not really sure that's the best way to do it. Like, if a book is an idea, you're selling an idea, and you're going to have trouble selling an idea if it's contained behind a paywall, right? Which is what you're doing when you're selling a book. You're saying, like, this is a really important idea that you have to know, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it, and you have to pay me up front to figure out what it is. So that I don't see as being a super successful strategy. I would much more recommend that people publish the book, have a big idea, but then discuss the idea as openly and as freely as possible.
Let me ask you another question here pertaining to the startups and growth hacking right now as it is, and how big it's, the word is, the big buzzword right now.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What do you think about growth hackers, and what makes or does not make a growth hacker? Because a lot of people would say that a direct response marketer to a degree is a growth hacker.
Sure.
And some would argue completely against that.
I think a lot of what direct response is also within growth hacking, but there's plenty of things that are within growth hacking that you wouldn't consider to be part of the domain of of direct marketing. I'll give you an example. So Airbnb, this is an example I put in the new version of the book. Airbnb realizes that customers are having trouble really conveying the awesomeness of their listings on the site, right? So they roll out a feature that says, we'll send a professional photographer to your house to take professional, flattering photographs of your house, and then we'll do that for free. We'll pay for that, right? What does that do? It grows the service rapidly because now all the listings look better. They can charge more for them. You want to use Airbnb because now you can have professional photographs of your house, right? No direct response marketer would say, hey, I have an idea. Let's pay $100 to have a photographer go out to every single listing that we have on our site, right? That doesn't necessarily scale. It's really expensive. But at the end of the day, it grows the site. And I don't think a traditional marketer would like that approach either. But when you sort of merge the two, it increases the average order value on the listings. It increases the attractiveness of the site. It's a cool, interesting thing for people to talk about. It's a selling point. It checks off a lot of different boxes that I don't think are fulfilled by a marketer or by a direct marketer. And so I see growth hacking sort of taking the best of both and adding new things and just sort of having a much more liberal definition of what growth is. Like, if your job is growing the site, that's fundamentally different than marketing the site, right? And I think those words matter. And what I like is that growth hackers go, look, our job is to do anything that grows the business. If it happens to be marketing, we'll do that. If it happens to be engineering solutions, we'll do that. If it has to be direct response, we'll do that. We'll do anything that grows the site, and that's the mindset that I'm trying to explain in the book.
Well, even biz dev, to a degree, could be considered
Totally.
because you're focused on huge channel partnerships and things like that.
Exactly. Maybe a good definition of growth hacking is marketing, direct response, product, and business development all merged into one singular role.
Yeah. I think it's a big thing also with growth teams rather than just growth hackers. You know,
Totally.
most people need to focus on building a growth team and having people in place to grow the company rather than just one or two. Always, essentially, you're trying to hack because you're always testing new things. So if something works
Right.
out, to a degree, it could be a hack. But
Right. It's not one growth hacker behind Facebook. It's a team whose
Exactly.
job is growth rather than publicity or public relations or marketing.
Mhm.
Do you have any more, something that I feel like I see a lot when it comes to the word growth and growth hacking, is there's not enough paid advertising
Sure.
examples. It seems to be a lot of, we did this trick, we did this or that, and I mean, even your American Apparel example where you leaked out the photos of the models, you still paid $1,500, or the Airbnb example, they're paying these photographers. Do you have anything in the new book or any examples of people using paid advertising strategies?
Well, I think that's definitely a good point. It's a bias inside growth hacking because a lot of these are very lean companies that don't have budgets. But as you grow and as you get to a certain scale, you have the money to spend on things. And frankly, you run out, like look, Facebook ads are great, but when you have a 10 or a 20 or $100 million marketing budget, you exhaust Facebook advertising as a resource pretty quickly. Like, people are really critical of like Super Bowl advertisements, and it's funny. It's like, yes, a lot of them are dumb and totally pointless, but if you're Microsoft and you have $1 billion marketing budget, which is what they have, spending $2.5 million on a 30-second commercial is not that unreasonable in context. So I think paid advertising is very important. I think you have to don't just do what everyone else is doing because that's what you're supposed to do. If you have a great idea for a Super Bowl ad or a great idea for a billboard or a great idea for just a banner campaign, I have no problem with that. What I think is important is that, one, you have clear goals with every campaign, you're holding yourself to certain benchmarks, and you're not rationalizing the money you're spending by under the auspices of like branding, like, oh, this is just helping the brand. No, if you're doing an ad campaign because you think it will get publicity and attention, great idea. If you're doing a banner campaign because you see that it's driving new customers, spend until it stops working. If you have the budget, spend it. Just know why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. And at the end of the day, nobody gets to be a billion-dollar brand without spending money at some point. Like, you can only do so many of these free tactics for so long before you hit the point of diminishing returns. And if you want to keep growing, you have to get more and more aggressive.
I did like one of the examples I have heard was the Tinder, what Tinder did. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
I'm pretty sure it was some sort of Southern California college. So they threw, like UCLA, I believe. They threw a big party, and in order to get to the party, you had to have the Tinder app on your phone. And what that did, which was really great, is then you know any person at that party, cute girls, cute guys, for example, are going to be on this app. And it kind of was a nice way to, you know, create micro growth.
Sure.
The way that, you know, Facebook started with colleges before going out to, you know, all the United States and the world.
Right. Look, I think what a growth hacker would, if a growth hacker was being honest, what they would say is anything that gets people to use the service is growth hacking. And provided that they continue to use the service and they don't immediately bounce out, it's worth doing. And you just gotta, I think you want to have as many channels as possible. You want to favor the most efficient channels, obviously, but if something as sort of unscalable as a party actually brings in users, then go for it.
How important do you think an onboarding process is? And also, following that, what do you think startups are doing right now that's wrong with growth hacking or growing their business in general?
Sure. I mean, obviously, onboarding is crucial. Like, the idea, like, the problem with marketing and even direct response is that, like, we kind of feel like our job is done once you get someone to sign up. And it's like, no, that's not it. If they sign up and then they don't become a customer, the whole thing was pointless, right? And the idea of sort of teaching someone to use your product and walking them through it and investing in making your existing users better users, I think is a far better use of resources than acquiring more and more customers with a short lifespan. So I definitely think onboarding is important. Not sort of working with web properties as much. I have a little bit less experience there, but in principle, I'm, a huge supporter. I think in terms of doing things wrong, I find, and this is definitely the direct marketing influence. Like, you'll hear people go like, sure, this landing page is really ugly and it looks scammy, but it converts really well, right? Like, I see people rationalizing and justifying, bad creatives, boring things, uninspired sort of content because it's, quote unquote working, when they could find things that are positive, creative, interesting, and have sort of long-term sustainability and drive customers. I think that's a lazy cop-out when you go like, look, our ads are really boring and not memorable, but they get a lot of clicks, right? Like, I think you want to keep iterating and keep improving until you have creative that is high quality and memorable, but then also drives the conversions that you need. Because if you create a crappy brand, you might not feel that today, and you might not be able to track today that it sucks. But in a year from now, I hear from these people all the time. They want to change their reputation, and it's too late.
So be very careful with what kind of creates your reputation and establishes it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that
sacrifice that for a few conversion points.
Sure, like, branding is hard to track, but that doesn't mean that it's not important.
Yeah, very true. Speaking of branding, you just joined a new brand. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. What drove that decision?
Yeah, so I've been a writer and a columnist at the New York Observer for almost 2 years now, and I really like the people there. So we sort of have established a relationship and a friendship, and they didn't have anyone to sort of be. They needed a sort of an editor-at-large position to run one of the sub brands, which is BetaBeat. It's their sort of tech arm, I've worked with all sorts of brands. I like to take on projects that are interesting that I haven't done before. And so editing and running a journalism property, something I haven't done, and it's something that was really attractive to me, and that's why I took it on.
How are you gonna find the balance between quality content and page views? Because obviously with your whole trust me,
Right.
I'm lying.
Sure.
Big focus on page views. Where does that?
Sure. That's the fundamental balance that I think we're going to have to figure out as a site. Because look, pages matter, and it's how you judge success. And I don't argue with that reality. I know that it exists. I just understand that a myopic focus on it really leads people astray. So I think the balance is going to be important. But I also think that as an as an actual newspaper property that has newspaper subscribers, the endless chase for those page views is somewhat less. So for us, like, I really want to focus on high quality, um, consistent, reliable content rather than churning out more garbage every day or every week.
Let's talk
Trying to
about
actually. Are you trying to actually retain more readers and kind of grow a base instead of just getting one-off, views, or what's the?
Exactly. I think if you build a base rather than one-off readers, you're going to have a far better and longer-term relationship with your customer than if you're just trying to trick people all the time.
yeah. Do you think startups are doing the right thing right now? Because a lot of them are focusing on heavy content marketing stuff, and I think for some it's working, but for some I really feel like they're just doing what you said, which is kind of just throwing out regurgitated content, and for some reason
Yeah.
it gets clicks and it works out. But what are your
I mean,
thoughts?
the problem with content marketing is that it's actually really hard to do well. And
Yeah,
if you're not a writer and you don't come from a writing background, maybe that's not where you should spend your time. That would be my advice. Like, if you don't know about content, maybe you don't go head to head with people who do this for a living.
yeah. Yeah, but it's also that education-based marketing as well with the content marketing that, startups are trying to educate about their tools and different things like that.
I mean, kind of. I think most of them are just writing about topics that they think will get lots of clicks, and they don't. They just hope that it will grow their business. They don't have much of a plan other than, hey, if we write this article and it gets lots of views, that must be good, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Where do you think startups should be spending their time as far as a focus on a marketing or a growth hacking basis?
Yeah, I don't think there's a place that startups should be spending their time. I think businesses should spend their time where their specific customers happen to be. So, if you have a mostly offline customer, don't spend your time chasing them online because that's probably not where they are. If you have a customer that reads a lot of articles, then maybe you should do content marketing. If you don't waste your time. So I hate talking about marketing in generalities, and I think it's much better to be specific. And so when someone's like, what advice would you give a business? I would say I wouldn't give them any advice. I would ask them a bunch of questions about what they specifically happen to do, and then formulate a plan from there.
That's a good answer.
Very good answer.
It's well practiced.
Now for the you were part of the James Altucher launch, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which-
My
was it
company
Choose
published
Yourself?
this book and marketed it. Yeah.
Gotcha. And what were some of the things you did for that book? Because I know that book was extremely successful. I've heard a lot of praise for it, and I'm pretty sure it was a bestseller.
It was. Yeah. It was a self-published Wall Street Journal bestseller, which is relatively rare. It was definitely James's first best-selling book. Sold, well over 100,000 copies. It's done spectacular. He sold the foreign rights in a bunch of countries. It's been great. Couple things big on that book that I think are worth knowing. One, it's his best book, and people, it's easy to say, like, oh, marketing is just making good content, but it's really hard. Like, he wrote a great book for an audience, and it's specific, and it's contained, and it's easy to talk about, and that is not done as often as it should. So I think that matters. And then two, James did some stunts with the book that did well. It was the first book to accept Bitcoin. He said he would refund your money if you read the book and you liked it, which got press and drove sales, so that was great. He partnered with Stansberry to do a sort of a bundled thing where his book was like a loss leader if you bought these reports. And that moved something like 20,000 copies. So it was hugely successful. So that sort of platform approach, I think, was great. Not a lot of authors do that. And then, for James, like James is someone who writes great content and does great content marketing, but he tends to be very scattered with it, and he just publishes a lot. And a big part of our success in that launch was just sort of concentrating James's energy in a specific direction towards the book. So I don't think there was one thing that made that book successful. It was fine-tuning a handful of things that he was already doing, and that ended up sort of all going right at the right time. And the book has been a testament to what happens when you do the right things at the right time.
I kind of wonder with the growth hacker marketing. I have the quote here: "Growth hackers are the new VPs of marketing." Yeah, I know that was, kind of your wake up, I believe, to writing the book. But I still wonder, because following your blog and most of your other writing, with the exception of Trust Me, I'm Lying, you tend to more focus on, more life meditations, I guess, for lack of a better word, and very rarely do you focus on business.
Right.
So what kind of what made that hard left, or what was the motivation there?
Well, I mean, I don't think there was actually much of a turn. Like, I have a successful marketing company. I have a handful of marketing clients. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't get up every day and then also want to write about what I do for a living. So I spend my marketing creativity and my energy on my clients. And then when I want to write and be creative as a writer, I want to write about different things. So growth hacker marketing is like, Trust Me, I'm Lying was an expose about my perspective on the media that I thought people needed to know. Growth hacker marketing came out of an article that I wrote that got a good response. My publisher asked if I would sort of expand that into a book, and I would sort of explain this topic, something that I was personally struggling with and trying to understand in my career. So that's where that book came out of. But I don't want to hold myself up as some growth hacker. I'm not going to be writing marketing books for the rest of my life. It was something that has happened that I was trying to explain and articulate to a public that I felt like look, everyone is doing growth hacking in the Silicon Valley and in our space, but I feel like a lot of the content is way too specific and way too hard for outsiders to understand. So I felt like the book was sort of a bridge between those two communities. I wanted people who see themselves as marketers and have never heard the word growth hacking to figure out how it works and try to understand it.
How do you think it's going to be in the next few years as bigger companies start to try at least to implement growth hacking strategies?
Yeah, I hope the increased competition makes everyone more creative and forces people to try new things. Maybe it means that content marketing stops working, so people try other things. I think that right now we're seeing how growth hacking works for small to medium-sized companies. I think it's going to be really interesting when Procter & Gamble or Johnson & Johnson is launching a new brand, and they say, like, look, we still have $1 billion to spend, but we don't just want to buy television commercials. We want this to be sustainable and self-generating, and they hire someone from one of these growth teams to implement those strategies in a new business. I think that sort of merging of insights and business models is going to create a lot of really exciting, interesting techniques.
Do you feel like the Old Spice campaign kind of fit that model?
I mean, it's definitely viral marketing, which I think is, like, viral marketing has only been around for like 10 years if you really think about it. So I think that's a great innovation on traditional marketing, and I hope we see that kind of thinking applied to lots of different parts of marketing.
Now, step 4, the last part of the book mentions optimization and retention.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any in the new book? Is there any strategies coming out or case studies around that, or do you? Because I think that is a big problem, especially when it comes to direct response. It tends to be a bit more punch them in the mouth, get their attention, get the sale,
right.
But you're worried, especially with SaaS. You're worried about the month. You're worried about the year. You're worried about users for life. So how do you think the best way to go about retaining customers or or building that.
Totally. I think you raise a good point. And, you know, direct marketing, if it has a bad reputation, it's because people are so focused on the sale and not on an ongoing, mutually beneficial relationship. It's very transactional. And so I think we're seeing that with startups for sure. I want, you know, there's a couple examples. My favorite example is the one that's in the initial book about Twitter rolling out the suggested users list in response to a sort of a black hole of users signing up for the service and then leaving. But, you know, like Dropbox has a great onboarding program. Pinterest has a great suggested users program. The idea of teaching people to use your product and noticing where like, look, I'll give you a great example. It's somewhat, I guess, confidential, but it doesn't matter. At American Apparel, we were like, sales haven't been what we wanted, and so we were looking at how to grow sales. And, you know, the first, it was like, hey, should we do more advertising? Should we do this? And then when we were looking at the stats, we noticed we had an abnormally high cart abandonment rate, right? And it's much less exciting to go and fix that than it is to buy new ads or to launch some new ad campaign. But which one is going to increase sales in the short term? It's like, look, you already got these customers. They liked your products enough to put it in their fucking shopping cart, and then they're not buying it. Just fix that. Don't buy more ads. Just get people from the 1 yard line into the end zone. And that's where the optimization and retention sort of mindset, I think, could really use some improvements at basically every company on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anyone really focuses on things like cart abandonment too much, and the money that you have just laying on the table there, though, is a lot.
Right. No, you're literally letting customers walk out the door because it's the equivalent if you had a retail store and someone was waiting in line to buy something and then they just said, ugh, I don't want to do this and left. That's what cart abandonment is, but people don't think about that because, like, they'd rather, you know, look at their conversion rate on Facebook ads or their click-through rate on a Facebook ad, or they'd rather send out another email campaign, when really it's like, look, just add another cashier and you'll double your sales. So yeah. I think that's really, really important.
Is there anything that you guys noticed from that process that you can share, you know, tweaks that you made that made it better? Was it, you know,
well, we haven't made the tweaks yet. We're working on it.
Because I know a big part of that. Sometimes they'll hit someone with a, "Hey, here's a $10 off coupon code."
Yep.
You know.
We'll probably do that. We'll probably do some cart abandonment retargeting ads with a discount. Yeah. We'll probably we'll use like Optimizely to run some A/B tests to really isolate what factors are causing the cart abandonment, and then we'll obviously, you know, eliminate those obstructions and hopefully just slowly work this number down until it's as close to zero as possible.
Have you guys tried? Sorry, have you guys tried any kind of like how we can help or can I help you type little pop-up buttons?
Like using Qualaroo?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. I'm actually here. I'm writing this down. I like your ideas. Glad we're talking about it. This is
well, no, I know.
These are the conversations that growth hacking teams have. You know.
Well, because I know that's a big one, and I know that's increased, you know, for a lot of people. And you know, Digital Marketer mentioned it, obviously.
Right.
That one thing they're doing is with their digital products, they're asking on every single one, "Hey, how can we help you?"
Right. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we're doing a sequence where if you, we're going to be releasing a lot of courses, and let's say you buy a course on Twitter and you leave, you're not actually interested in that, then we go back, but we retarget you specific to the course that you clicked onto, not just like, hey, you know, like Udemy or other places would just say, hey, here's a discount on whatever. Like, we're retargeting you specifically to what we thought that you clicked on and you were last about to purchase.
Totally. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you're still involved at American Apparel as well, or is it more?
Yeah, mostly as a sort of a consultant and as an advisor.
Shopping cart abandonment extraordinaire.
Yes, of course. Well, actually, no. It's like, hey, Ryan, like, what advertising could we do? And I said, you know, maybe advertising is not the solution.
I also like, I know you said in another, I think it was podcast or something, you said half of marketing spend is wasted. I just don't know which half, which I think was, you know, someone else's quote originally.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a big part of the growth hacking that, you know, maybe people from the outside world don't realize is that we have access to data now and all these different tools. And just that example that you just gave, you know, 10, 20, 30 years ago, they wouldn't really know those numbers. They wouldn't know that people were abandoning a shopping cart.
No, you would just have to spend more money to sort of compensate for the people who are leaving. Now you can fix that problem and spend less money. And I think that, or you can say, like, look, maybe we can't solve the cart abandonment thing. Maybe these are just customers that are not, these are just looky-loo customers who are not worth chasing. So let's find out where these leads are coming from and stop driving them to our site because it's wasted.
Or maybe try to create a smaller kind of lead in and take them into a smaller offer and then start pushing them into a buyer's funnel.
Totally. There's so many things that you can do. And I feel like if you just see yourself as an ad buyer or a marketer, your understanding is that that's not your problem, right?
You're a one-trick pony.
Yeah,
right.
No one wants to be that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
I think that's kind of the problem that a lot of people grasp too with the term growth hack, because it encompasses a lot of things, and then it also bridges the gap between the engineers. So with the product market fit, hey guys, let's tweak this.
Right.
But then it also connects to the customer service, the onboarding side. So it is, you know, it's very connected to almost all parts. So it's hard to, it's like, oh well, they just do this, but really their hands are involved in all of it.
Right. No, they're a full master of the whole sales process, I think, is what you want to see it as. And
there's no 10th floor, 6th floor, you know, anymore. It's everyone's on the same level. And
no, that's absolutely right.
So are you guys still? Tucker mentioned you, Neil, and him book marketing book. Is that still coming along or no?
Yes, it is coming along, and it should be ideally out in the next year or so.
Nice. We got to have you back on to talk about that one.
I would absolutely love that.
And do you also have any? Obviously, you're a big book guy. I can't possibly count how many books are behind you. I know I read Meditations. I know you're strong on that one. Great book. And do you have any recommended books for someone who's, you know, interested in getting into startups, or I guess we'll say growth hacking?
My favorite book of last year was this book, $1 Billion Lessons, which was sort of looking, because like every book tends to be about business successes, and this was about some of the costliest failures in business history. And so I definitely recommend looking at this book and just sort of looking at all, like, most acquisitions fail, most mergers fail, most expansions into adjacent businesses fail, and it's seeing this data and going like, look, you're not different. It's going to fail for you too, so just don't do it. So I really like that book, and I think it's a great business book for people to read.
So Twist, what's one of your, because I know you talk about dropping out a lot.
Yeah.
What's one of your bigger failures, you know, that you learned from and you actually think, you know, at the time, of course, it was devastating, but it was actually crucial?
Big failures. You know, I think we all have personal failures in our lives. That no one needs to hear about mine, but we all have personal failures. You know, I worked in Hollywood before I sort of got into marketing, and I didn't understand the political situation enough. I thought just being a young person who was successful and had good ideas was what it took. When really that can actually be a disadvantage. That can be something that turns other people off where they see as threatening. And I sort of bounced out of there because of that. And so that's been a failure I've tried to learn from a lot. How do you make sure that you not only are good, but you understand the political situation, you have allies and relationships that allow you room to make mistakes and to develop and figure things out as you go?
And let's also, for someone who's inexperienced, right, maybe they're not, growth hacking sounds like something they want to do. How do you go, because I feel like it's another one of those things that's kind of 0 to 60, and it's either you know how to do it or you don't. So where does someone bridge that gap and start to learn? Because they can read your book, but even your book says, hey, I'm giving you the mindset, but you're going to have to kind of figure this out on your own.
Sure. I would start small. I would start either with some product or project of your own and launch that. Like, start a blog and figure out how to grow readership. If if you learn how to go from 0 readers to 1,000 readers, it's going to be much easier for you to grow a startup from 10 customers to 10 million customers, because you get the process is the same, the skill is just different. So launch your own project, grow, volunteer, work, call up digital marketer and ask if you can be an unpaid intern or whatever, like help grow this show, do anything. Like you've got to learn this on the job, and if that job means not getting paid, then so be it.
Yeah, I think also focusing heavily on one of the first things you talk about, which is product market fit. I think too many people think crazy idea, or we have this business, let's just grow it, and you're not really focused on the product market fit. If you can get that down from the beginning, that's extremely crucial to the future.
Totally.
Well, cool,
that's
man.
something I noticed that Ryan says a lot. He only works with kind of successful products that he already knows are good products. You don't take something that's average, miracle out of it. Rather, you take, as you said, James's book was some of his best writing.
Totally. You got to have a great product at the end of the day, and you got to pick your shots.
Well, Ryan, I know you've been great with us, and we want to be respectful of your time. So, thank you so much for being on. And any last words? Anything you want to kind of leave us with, or?
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the idea you gave me. I'm going to steal it when I get off, and then we'll hopefully talk again soon.
Where can people reach you at or find you?
Yeah, so my site is ryanholiday.net. The book is Growth Hacker Marketing on Amazon, and you can follow me on Twitter. It's just Ryan Holiday at Twitter.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Man. Appreciate it.